I'm Emily Sawyer, and I'm interviewing Lauren Satcher for her 4th grade reading lesson in Mr. Overbeck's class. I've reviewed your class and instruction profiles. Please take a few moments to look them over and tell me if there have been any changes to these since you've completed them.
Okay. No, there are no changes.
Thank you. Why have you chosen these goals for your lesson?
The goals I chose are aligned with the Ohio Department of Education Common Core standards, and all the skills that I put in my goals are built on prior knowledge that the students already have, and also all of the skills are important as they're going to be utilized throughout the students' lives, especially the aspect of teamwork that I incorporated into the lesson.
Explain how the content of this lesson fits within the larger goals of learning and reading.
The content helps the students build on prior knowledge to expand, especially sequencing, which I have them expand on, and it also helps them to apply previous knowledge in new ways.
Why is it important to become familiar with the prior content knowledge and skills of your students?
As a teacher, I don't want to reteach content that they have already learned, nor teach content that they don't have prior background knowledge of.
How do you become familiar with the prior content knowledge and skills that your students bring to this and other lessons?
I can review their testing from previous years from previous years as well as lessons that I have taught with them, and I can also monitor their understanding and knowledge through the activities that I have taught them.
What prior content knowledge and skills do students need in order to be successful in reaching the learning goals for this lesson?
The students need to understand how to sequence events in a book, as well as they need some background knowledge of first and third person point of views.
Why is it important to become familiar with your students' background knowledge and experiences?
This is important because if they have an experience or exceptionality that affects the way that they learn, the teacher must accommodate to their needs and modify the lesson to help their students.
How do you become familiar with your students' background knowledge and experiences?
I like to become familiar with their background and experiences through communication with administration, parents, previous teachers that have taught them, and the students themselves, as students like to share their own information as well.
Discuss 2 specific examples of students' background knowledge and experiences that you became familiar with from the approaches you just outlined, and how did you use that information to guide or shape your instruction?
Well, in the beginning of the year at open house, I had a parent approach me about his daughter who has an exceptionality that shoots pain through her body, and she really struggles with focusing as she has tics and all those different things. So it's a huge aspect of her life, and it really affects her focus and learning in the classroom. So I make sure to call on her to make sure that she is focusing and paying attention when we are sitting for long periods of times, be it in the reading area or in the desks. Sorry. Another example is I have 5 ELL students in my class that I'm going to be teaching, and I have communicated with a previous teacher that they have had who teaches them about what I can do to accommodate for them, as well as how the language barrier affects their learning. So I like to make sure that I have a lot of one-on-one time with them to make sure they do understand the instructions that I'm giving, because if it's just in large group, there may be questions that they aren't willing to ask in front of the large group.
How do these teaching methods help these particular students achieve the learning goals of this lesson?
I use large and small grouping as well as independent activities to help the students demonstrate their knowledge in multiple different situations. And small grouping is very big for the students who are struggling, because when they have their peers around them that maybe understand it better, they are able to help the students who are struggling.
How do these activities help these particular students achieve the learning goals of the lesson?
I like to meet 7 of the 9 multiple intelligences that Howard Gardner named, And so some of my examples of that is in the beginning of my lesson, I have the students sequence events of a story, which is using a lot of the logical, mathematical, and bodily kinesthetic as well, because I'm having them move around to do so. And then For verbal linguistic, I have a read aloud where I'm going to actually read them a book, so that will meet their verbal linguistic multiple intelligence. And then interpersonal is also huge, where I have at the end of the lesson, I'm going to have them have a personal worksheet that they're going to work on.
How do these instructional materials help these particular students achieve the learning goals of the lesson?
Well, they are all age appropriate and provide different ways for students to understand the content that is being taught.
How does this evaluation strategy help you determine if each student has met the learning goals for the lesson?
I am able to check the understanding based off of how well they answer questions in class discussion as well as on the worksheets that I hand out and will collect.
Why is this evaluation strategy appropriate for your students?
Well, throughout the lesson, I will use concrete and non-concrete evaluation methods, and those will allow me to know sooner if a student is understanding. So if I have them all give thumbs up, that may not be as concrete, but I'm able to see that some students do understand what is being taught. And then the worksheet is a more concrete, and it's much sooner than taking a test at the end of teaching the things.
How will you use the results of the evaluation?
I use them to inform me if I need to adapt future lessons that are going to be taught about this content, or if I'm going to need to reteach any certain part of the content that they didn't quite understand. And it also helps me to understand what methods work best for the students and what they respond to better.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.